Hi guys, so today I am making what is called dosa batter, D-O-S-A. And dosas are from South India, and they're a fermented crepe. And I really love them, I eat them all the time. And they're super easy to make. The thing about making them though is it takes like a full day, so you have to just remember to do all the steps. But it's pretty easy to do and it's really inexpensive. And the other thing about dosas is that they are gluten-free because it's just rice and it's urad dal mixed together and it's fermented and then you cook them up. So it's gluten-free, really easy to digest, and you can eat them with anything. You can, traditionally they're eaten at breakfast, but you can eat them anytime and you can put anything on them. And they're very light, so it's really nice. So here's the thing, to do this well, you have to have what I have here, which is called idli rice. And idli, it's made from the same batter as dosa, but they're actually, if you've never had them, they're actually like a steamed dumpling. You take that and you steam it. But we're gonna keep it as crepe batter. But an idli rice is slightly different in that it's parboiled, and so, which means that it's got really actually almost the same nutrients as like brown rice because it hasn't been stripped by, it's parboiled in the whole, like, what do they call it, the hull or husk or whatever it is. So it's a little bit different, and it's really key that you have good rice. You could try it with some other rice, but I haven't been as successful. So I usually get this idli rice. This is a 10-pound bag, and I think it's like 15 bucks or something. And I have gotten organic ones of either this or the dal, but sometimes it's harder to get and it's kind of expensive, so whatever works for you. So I've got the idli rice, and then you need this urad dal. They need to be split, so it's black gram split. And this whole bag was probably a few dollars. And I think, I used to go to the Indian store, but now that we've been in the pandemic, I just ordered it from Amazon, so it's super easy. So what I'm gonna do, and you could play with these ratios, but this is the simplest ratio. We're gonna go 2 cups of rice to 1 cup of dal. So all I'm going to do is I'm gonna take 1 cup of dal. And this is what it looks like. And I'm putting it in my fine mesh strainer. And then I'm gonna rinse it. Now you always wanna rinse your dal and your rice because it gets rid of any residue on there, and especially with dal, like you can look through because sometimes there can be like a stone or little pieces of stuff. So you always want to rinse it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I rinse it a few times, and actually let me see if I can see. I thought I saw a little piece of something. I did. So I'm going to get rid of that. So I rinse it off. And then I'm gonna put it in a bowl. And then I'm gonna cover it with water, and I'm actually gonna kind of rinse over this because that gets the other little pieces from my strainer in there, much more easy. So all I do here is I make sure it's covered, pretty well covered, and then I'm gonna add a teaspoon of fenugreek. And fenugreek, well, it helps with digestion, but I think for this, it actually helps it ferment better. So like it helps keep the carbon dioxide in to help it ferment. So I'm gonna put a teaspoon in, and then I'm gonna set this bowl aside. So I'm gonna put this over here. Now I'm gonna do the rice, and these have to be soaked separately. So I'm gonna take 2 cups of rice. And the idli rice is actually, it's short grain, so that's the other difference, is that it's much shorter, so it ferments better. So I'm gonna take 2 cups in my strainer, and same thing, I'm gonna rinse it off. And then I'm gonna put it in another bowl. And now I'm not gonna add salt or anything yet because I'm gonna do that later in the next stage. So if it were warm out, the fermenting process would go a little quicker, but I'm guessing it's going to take us probably maybe 24 hours. So I cover it up with just enough, and then I'm going to set it aside. And then I'm going to let it sit for probably about 6 hours. So I usually do this, like it's about 1 o'clock now, so it's a quick thing. Like maybe it's like lunch and I do it, I put it in, and then I'm gonna let it sit, and then we'll come back in about 6 hours. All right, hi you guys, we are back. So I have my rice that's been soaking and my dal that's been soaking. And let's see, it's been about, I don't know, 6 or 7 hours. So when you soak it, it really has to be a minimum of 4 hours. You could do it overnight if you want, but it's been going for a while. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these each at a time. So I'm gonna do, doesn't matter which one you do first, but I'm gonna do the rice one. And I'm gonna take it and drain off most of the water. So I'm just putting a plate on top, and I'm gonna drain off most of it. And then, after I do that, I'm gonna put it in my Vitamix. So I'm taking the rice and stepping up on my step stool because I am short. Most of you will not need a step stool, but I do. So I have clean hands and I am putting the rice in here. And then what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna add some water. And I'm gonna use, I like to use my fresh water from the fridge because it's been filtered. So I can't tell you the exact amount, but I'm gonna estimate that I'm gonna look at this and I'm gonna put in about maybe a cup and a half or so. I'm gonna kind of guess. We'll just kind of know by the consistency. And the thing is, we can always add more water, so I'm not super worried about it. So I'm gonna add the water. And then I'm also gonna add, at this point, I'm gonna add some salt. And salt also helps it ferment. I'm using pink sea salt. You could use a non-iodized salt too. So I'm gonna put in about a teaspoon and maybe a half. And then, get ready, plug your ears. I'm gonna grind this for about a minute. So, and I have to put it on high. So I would definitely recommend using a Vitamix. It's really hard to do this in a food processor to get it like ground really well. So here we go. Whoops, hang on. There we go. And I gotta do it on high. So this is, okay, let's see how it looks. Okay, it looks pretty good. So now I'm gonna take the dal and I'm gonna mix it right in here with the rice in the water. So it's a little thicker. This is way better to do in a pandemic than the sourdough thing, you know? It's kind of fun. And super easy. You know, the hard part is really just remembering to do it. You know, each step is like pretty easy and pretty quick. Like, you know, I did that first step right. You know, we had lunch and it was like a quick soak, and then it was like dinner, and now we just do this, and then I'm gonna end up leaving it. So I'm gonna stir it all up. You can kind of see it's just like, you know, kind of like a pretty thin batter. So I mix it up. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cover it with I'm just gonna take a little, this is like a napkin, a cloth napkin or towel. I'm gonna cover it. And then I'm gonna put it in my oven. So it needs to be in a dark, warm place. And the good thing is we actually just cooked dinner, so the oven's still like, it's cooling off, so it's still a little bit warm, and I kind of like that. If it were, because it's cold out, I might have turned on the oven for like 5 minutes or so just to get it like a little warm in there. So I'm gonna put it in here. Yeah, it feels pretty good. You could even turn on like your oven light overnight. That gives it a little bit of warmth. And then I'm gonna leave it there. Hey you guys, I'm back. So it's the next day, and I'm gonna take my dosa batter out of the oven. And I forgot to tell you guys last night that I usually put a little note on the oven that says dosa, because we've had it in our household where there's fermenting dosa, and then the next thing you know, someone turns on the oven and it's a drag. So I'm gonna take it out and see how it looks. And it's looking pretty good, and I'm gonna show it to you. Let me bring it over. It could probably be a little fluffier, but can you see, you might be able to see all these little bubbles that are coming up, and I can kind of smell a little bit the fermentation. So it looks pretty good to me. I'm gonna actually make a dosa with it, but then I think I'm gonna let this sit maybe a little bit longer. Like I can just let it sit, you know, the rest of the day. And then what I'll do is I'm just gonna put it in a big jar at the end of the day. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a dosa now. Okay, so I have this cool, handy cast iron little skillet, which is awesome for this. But you could use a nonstick pan, whatever works. But don't use. I would definitely use a nonstick. So I'm gonna warm it up, and then because I'm taking it from this bowl, I'm just gonna take a little scoop. And you can make this as thin as you want. So I'm gonna pour it in. And you know, I'm gonna spread it with my spoon and see how that is. And I'm gonna let it get pretty warm, but then because this keeps a lot of heat, I'm gonna turn it down a little bit. And then I actually like to do it kind of low, and then I actually cover it because I think that helps a bit, but you don't have to. So it's just like making any other crepe or a pancake. So I'm gonna let it cook, and then we'll flip it. Okay, so now I'm gonna check my dosa and see how it's looking. It's looking pretty good. So I'm gonna let it get a little more golden. I'm gonna give it like another, I don't know, half a minute here, and then I'm gonna flip it. Okay, I think I'm probably about ready to flip. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. So I'm gonna go up and over. And now, because this is cast iron, it's getting pretty hot. So I'm gonna turn it down a little bit and let it cook the rest of the way. Should take about a minute or so. Okay, so I think we're probably about ready here. I have flipped my dosa, and let's see. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. So, you know, just remember, like, this is super easy to digest. It's just dal and rice and salt and fenugreek. There's nothing else in it. So it's actually high protein as well because it's got the dal in it. So, and traditionally it's actually eaten for breakfast, usually with sambar, but you can eat this anytime. You can have it, I usually just put ghee on it. You can have it breakfast, lunch, dinner, with coffee, a glass of wine, anything you want. And that's it. Done.